In today's video, we're going to be going over the new Beaumont bag from Canmore. Stay tuned. Well, hello everybody, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please think about giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. So in front of me here, I have the new Beaumont? I'm never quite sure how to say your last name, Callum, so you could let me know in the comments. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. I don't think I am. But in any case, you worked with Canmore to design this new bag, and one of its features is the fact that the neck on this bag points backwards. You'll see a photo on screen now comparing this bag here to a standard medium Canmore bag right here. You can see that the stock for the chanter points kind of out, and again, this one points back. And we can also see that the stock fittings for the drones at the very least are slightly more forward on the Beaumont bag than the medium Canmore, but otherwise the height and length of the bags do seem to be the same. So this does seem to be a modified medium-sized bag for those wanting to know in terms of the height of the bag. And I'll be tying my 2018 Peter Henderson Heritage pipes into the Beaumont bag, and in the medium Canmore, I'll be tying in my 2025 RG Hardy pipes. In a recent little short I put up with tips and tricks for tying into a synthetic bag, one of the things I mentioned was putting a stopper in the middle tenor stock so it doesn't get mixed up, because you want to try to keep all the vibrating parts together. But I also talked about using some liquid dish soap in the stocks to try to push them through, and Canmore themselves recommends that. But Colin Nisbet at the Piper's Cove recommended that I use olive oil instead. Don't put anything on the pipes that you wouldn't put in your mouth. I thought that was some pretty good advice. While I don't have any olive oil here in my office, I do have some sweet almond oil right here that I've used to oil my pipes before. So I'm gonna put a little of this on my finger, kind of rub it around the stock and see if that works as well as the dishwashing solution. All right, let's start tying this thing in. I'm going to start with the base drone. I recommend starting with the base drone so you don't put it on the wrong side of the bag. It's easier to do than you might think. So don't get it mixed up. Get the bag under your arm and yeah, get a little bit of some lubrication in there, whatever you're going to use. Yeah, make sure it's going through the right hole. All right, we got the base. Let's go into the middle. Again, a little lubrication in the opening. It's a lovely brown color that makes it look much more like an actual hide bag than the black that's been used previously, like on this medium one right here. But it is showing some of the oil from my fingers. We'll see if that dries later or if it just keeps it stained. If it was a hide bag, it'd have little stains on it from seasoning and other stuff too. So maybe it just makes it even more realistic looking. And the outside. One way to tell the outside, it's the side with the zipper. If you try to put the base drone through on the side that has the zipper, that's a sign the base is on the wrong side. And I'm just reaching up and in to check to make sure that the bottom of this groove is kind of level with the bottom of the grommet. And yes, indeed it is. Let's move on to the blowpipe. And the blowpipe stock is the shorter of the two stocks there. If you mix those up, your chanter tuning is going to be kind of wonky. So don't mix them up. Plus your blowpipe will be, well, longer because the stock's longer. All right, we got all of the easy ones done. Let's move on to the chanter stock. It's not so bad either. You want to take the supplied O-ring it comes with and get it into the groove of the chanter stock. I find it easiest to put it over the top and kind of then push it down. Getting it over this wider bottom part, I haven't been able to do it without using some sort of tool, and I don't want to possibly scratch anything. So this way is easier. And this is one place where a smooth turned bagpipe makes this a lot easier. It doesn't catch on all the combing and beating as you're tying it in. But come on, the combing and beating looks awesome. So, all right, so we're gonna fit this into the neck. And yes, in the case of my stock, it will go in from this way. Sometimes you have to feed it in and through. I really think it depends on the, thickness of your stock. This one was able to go in just fine. And so we're going to want to now clamp this down over the O-ring. So you have to kind of aim it Some people will even mark it with a little Sharpie or even put some tape around the bottom so things aren't moving. I'm pretty good at just making sure it's on there. And while it does have an opening for a flathead screwdriver, if possible, I like trying to use a socket that will fit over the screw. If this slips, this is way less likely to damage either the pipes or the bag. A flathead screwdriver could possibly puncture the bag. You'd have to be pushing pretty hard, but better safe than sorry. But I couldn't find my normal socket driver, so I'm going to use the ratchet. But you don't want to over tighten this. This would be really easy to crank down on super tight. I get it on there snugly, and then I test the bag for air tightness. And if I hear any air leaking out of the chanter stock, I'll slowly tighten it a little bit more, but you definitely don't want to over tighten this. I'm not trying to crack anything on this instrument. There we go. I have this directly over the O-ring underneath. We're going to go ahead, turn this ratchet so it's in tighten mode. And I'm not grabbing it down here because that could put a lot more torque. I'm just using my fingers right at the top because, again, I do not want to over tighten this. Okay, it's starting to get a little snug right there. We're going to stop it there. And next step is going to be putting some zipper lube on the zipper. It comes with some T-zip right here. I tend to put just a bead of it along one full edge of the zipper and then move it back and forth a few times. I also try to make sure I get on all those little dots at the back just to make sure, I don't know, it gets a good, nice seal back there. That definitely helps that zipper move more easily. The bag also came with self-amalgamating tape here, which sticks to itself to put between the grommets and the stocks. We're going to put that on after I make sure the bag is airtight. This kind of keeps them from moving. I don't tend to find these actually keep the bag airtight, but they do keep the stocks from twisting or readily coming out. But I want to make sure there's no leaks on anything before I install these. So let's get some stoppers, a moose valve, and a blowpipe, and see if this bag's airtight. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the members of my Patreon community. You'll see their names scrolling up now. These are folks that contribute monthly to the channel. I'd love to add your name to this list. You get perks like having your name in my books, like the Bagpipe Basics book right here, or the new Tunes, Chords, and Harmony Volume 2 Christmas edition. So think about joining the Patreon. It really does help make these videos possible. And my favorite valve on the market is the Moose valve. I have a brand new one here sticking into the pipes. And if you want more information on the Moose valve, check out that video here or in the link in the description to learn more about this wonderful valve. And it is zippered closed. Make sure of that. Valve's in place. We're going to hear if this is airtight. It might be leaking a little air here. I might need to be tightening this a little bit more. So if you hear a tss, doesn't mean anything's wrong with the bag. It just means I need to tighten this more. But again, I don't want to over tighten the chanter stock. I don't hear anything, so I would say that's tight. And look at that. Man, that's wild. That chanter stock is really pointing backwards. I'm curious as to what that's going to feel like when I go to play it, but that is definitely a unique shape. So now I'm going to tie in the standard Canmore medium and cork it up and do the same thing so we can actually compare both of these pipe bags and see how different the shape of them is. All right, here we go. I have the medium standard tied in. You can see the chanter stock is pointing out. Everything else is holding air very nicely. And then again, this one with that chanter stock pointing back. You'll see a picture on screen now of the two of them next to each other. So yeah, there you go. The bags are both level, and you can see the chanter stocks are pointing quite differently. So let's get these pipes set up the rest of the way and see how they're playing. All right, I have this ready to inflate. I have all of the drones stoppered up, and I have an earplug instead of a chanter reed in the chanter stock, so no air should be coming out of this bag. I just kind of want to see how it's shaped and yeah, what this neck on the bag is going to do. So let's fire this thing up. So the blowpipe's doing a fairly good job of coming to my face. I'm still probably going to use a bit of string to pull this back right there. We'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But yeah, let's get this camera down a little bit so we can see more of this chanter. There we go. Okay, so with the drones nice and against my chest, that chanter, it's actually pointing back further. I actually have to have the drones slightly further away from my chest than I typically have them. But in this position, the chanter, it's like right there. So the drones are just a little bit angled back just a little bit further. They're still this direction of 45, which is really what I'm looking for. Again, I would typically kind of eliminate what I call the triangle of doom, which is the base drone, top of the bag, and your chest. I like getting that stock kind of right up against the chest as close as I can. But if I do that with this bag, it's actually putting the chanter at an angle where you see I either have to push it out, which kind of undoes the whole point of this neck, or I have to have my hand actually kind of touching my middle. But if I just move the bag forward just a little bit, the chanter's in a very nice angle. You can see it's not really moving from where I want to play it. So let's see how the regular medium Canmore looks. So you can see right away, if I just blow this up, two things. One, this blowpipe here is much further away from my mouth. I'm definitely going to have to use some heavy-duty twine here. I use the Catahoula tarred twine that I use for regular tying in. Video on that twine right here. But I'll show you kind of how I angle this back in just a minute here. So the blowpipe angle is a little bit closer to your face on the Beaumont bag than this one. But again, that's readily fixed. But you can see the chanter is actually quite a ways from me, and I have to actually push it back. Now, I don't really mind the feeling of that kind of tension in my hands right there, but everyone's going to be a little bit different. So now with this regular medium, you can see I can get the drones much closer to my chest because they're a little bit further back in the bag. The Beaumont bag had them a little bit more forward, but again, every bag is kind of shaped for different people, and there's no one right answer. Again, that's what with the neck, how it would normally go and where the blowpipe would be if I wasn't holding it in my mouth. But you can only tell so much about any pipe bag when they're all corked up. The real proof is how do they play. So let's uncork these things and have a go, tune or two on each of these. And yeah, I'll give you my thoughts. I do give online bagpipe lessons, so go ahead and head over to www.commandyourbagpipe.com or email me at the address you see here, and we'll get you going. I'm working with folks from all over the planet, and I hope to work with you soon. That was pretty wild. This bag feels pretty cool, but very different. That chanter being right there is, it's almost bizarre, but it's nice. It's very secure. I feel I can grab the chanter with less pressure because it's just not going anywhere. So I felt like my hands were just a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more fluid. I don't know if that comes across in the playing or not. And as you can see right there, I can get the blowpipe of the Beaumont back in my mouth even while I'm playing without having to let go of the chanter. It was a little bit of a reach versus the regular medium Canmore where you can see right there, it pops out quite far, and the only way it's coming back is by grabbing it with another hand. So if you're in a contest, that's bad news bears. But again, let's go to Matt from the past to talk about how you can fix this blowpipe issue. And the final thing I want to talk about was what I addressed with the blowpipe stock earlier, is a way to angle the blowpipe back towards your mouth so that when you're playing, the blowpipe, if it were to come out, doesn't pop out and, well, maybe even fling spit into your audience. But at worst, have to take a hand off your chanter to put the blowpipe back in your face. So what I like to do is I make actually two, let's see if we can see this. I make two collars of sorts out of zip ties. And I use about 3 zip ties, and I go around the base of both the blowpipe and the base stock. And then I use some of my artificial sinew, and I actually tie a knot. I kind of loop it through these 2 collars, and the collars are somewhat loose. I get a little bit of flexibility there. I find that I have about 5 fingers when the knot's tied between the 2, and that gives me a nice angle. You can adjust this however you need to, though. You can make this as long or as short as you need, and you're just going to have to play test it and see where that blowpipe is falling when you go to inflate the bag. If it's still too far out, you're going to want to shorten this distance. If it's too far down and it's below your chin, you made it too short, you're going to want to make it longer. You can, if the zip ties scare you, because they can have kind of sharp edges, you can either cover them in some more rescue tape, or you can actually just use the tie-in cord around the whole thing. I like that there's kind of a little bit of extra wiggle room here. I can adjust slightly the degree here, and I haven't had any problems with it damaging the bag. But you do what works for you in your world. But that's a great way of getting that blowpipe back where you need to have it when you're playing. So while the chanter position was certainly interesting and felt unusual but quite comfortable, the drones being slightly more forward for my posture did make the drones lean back slightly, and I had to kind of work when I was getting the bag up and under my arm to make sure the pipe was positioned in the right spot so that the chanter wasn't too far back, like kind of behind my leg. And it did mean that the drones were leaning back a little bit more. With the standard medium, as you can see here, I get a much more upright stance with the drones because they're further back in the bag, so I can get them kind of up and have more instrument coming out in front of me. So if Canmore was ever going to make a Willis bag, I think I'd want the drone positioning of the standard medium, and I'd probably want the swan neck not quite as extreme, probably more just straight down rather than even angled back, but it's very nice having just that little bit less tension in your hands. Now, unfortunately, this is just how it fits on me. Every human being is different. I'm 5'6", I'm relatively lean, so my chest doesn't stick out all that far. If I had a larger chest for whatever reason, that more forward drone posture might actually be advantage, but being relatively lean, I want the drones just a little further back. It was quite nice to play. It's going to take a little while to get used to it, but every pipe bag takes a little while to get used to. So if you want to give this one a whirl, it's airtight. It definitely functions just fine as a pipe bag. And it's this cool brown color, which, is nice and looks a little bit more like, the actual real hide stuff. But in going back to the standard medium, I will say it was kind of like coming home. Again, I've played on medium synthetic bags for a long, long time, and the standard medium is cut the way that they've largely been cut. There's been little, tweaks over the decades or whatever, but it's largely the same with that chanter out position with the drones falling where they did. So that felt more like home base, whereas the Beaumont bag here is going to take me a little while to get used to, but that's true of any pipe bag. And this is on one of my primary sets, so it's going to get plenty of playtime. So I look forward to putting this bag through its paces and seeing how it holds up long term. Thank you again for watching, everybody. I'm Matt Willis, and until next time, cheers.